की मसाल,
देखे हाथ हल कुदाल और ज्ञान की मसाल।
आओ चले साथ साथ गाँव को,
आओ चले साथ साथ गाँव को,
क्योंकि गाँव गाँव से गरीबता मिटाएगी,
क्योंकि गाँव गाँव से गरीबता मिटाएगी।
भारतीय सांस्कृतिक क्रांति, मानवीय सांस्कृतिक क्रांति,
भारतीय सांस्कृतिक क्रांति, मानवीय सांस्कृतिक क्रांति, भारतीय सांस्कृतिक क्रांति, मानवीय सांस्कृतिक क्रांति। जिंदाबाद
इनकलाब
जिंदाबाद
इनकलाब
जिंदाबाद।
युग की जड़ता के खिलाफ एक इनकलाब।
Over the millennia, women have perhaps forgotten that they were once as strong as men, as capable at the hunt and at the marketplace. They have now become second-class citizens in a world gone wrong. Men have taken over the markets and turned women into commodities, slaves that produce male heirs to continue the oppression. Even today, women are unaware of their strengths and their rights. They are conscious, if they are conscious at all, only of the burdens that they must carry without complaint. What is women's development? It is of course measured in literacy rates and the quality of their health, the number of children they must bear, but it is ultimately in the revealing of their strengths. It is freedom from the feeling of being a helpless victim. It is a restatement of rights and responsibilities. It is solidarity and the joy that empowerment can bring. That empowerment best evolves from insights and understandings that transform, bred of a community that shares and supports a new vision.
वहीं से शुरुआत करते हैं, देखते हैं वहाँ पे क्या असर होता है, फिर ताकि इसको फैला आगे करने में क्या सहूलियत होगी या क्या विरोध होगा, ये सब वहाँ से पता लगेगा।
One of the powerful tools of transformation that helps change this quest from a dream to a reality is using some of the elements of popular culture. It is inexpensive, familiar, draws upon the very community it seeks to impact, and brings people together in a spirit of inclusiveness.
कि ये नाटक हमारे लायक हुआ, इसमें एक तो समझदारी आई, भी क्या नाम मजदूरी के ऊपर, जब हमें क्या नाम शिक्षा तो यहीं तो मिली, संगठन में तो यह शिक्षा मिली, जब जाकर हम बाहर निकलना इतना बोलना जाए।
Street plays, songs and puppet shows can often drive home a message both intimately and emphatically, yet rarely offend those in situations that defend the status quo or their own power as a political movement might. Alcohol is the cross we bear, says the song. There is nothing anyone gains from it. The family finds it difficult to survive, let alone prosper. Children sleep hungry, and an atmosphere of gloom envelops the home. It is the women who suffer the most. Here, the women remind each other that their predicament is not unique, and that together they can fight the menace.
Singing really has been part of South Asia for thousands of years. For communities who are rooted in nature, for communities who are still not atomized individuals living next to each other, but who continue to be genuine communities, I think singing is like breathing, is like eating. It is interwoven. It's like their crafts, which are part of their life. So the so-called developed people, in their journey towards development, stop singing and dancing.
I'm a firm believer that we all have to cherish.
A recent South Asian workshop on popular culture and development, jointly hosted by the United Nations Sub-Regional Programme for South Asia and NORAD, brought together field workers, NGOs, artists and performers from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and several regions of India, for the first time, to exchange ideas on the uses of traditional popular culture forms with special reference to women's development. In a village community, the women burdened with 1,000 chores often find it difficult to take even a little time off to attend a formal meeting. The woman has to cope with and overcome male resentment and resistance.
मीटिंग में आना वाला के घेर में हो रही मीटिंग अभी आई घास है अच्छा आज नहीं गई थी घास लेने बारिश में चुआ चुआ तो नहीं घर चुया नहीं है चुया नहीं ना ये कि सारा तो ऐसा दिख रहा है
While the attraction of empowerment is strong, it is the coming together in a supportive, nurturing community that provides the supportive space to encourage self-expression and the assurance that the woman in her predicament is not alone.
आज अपनी मीटिंग में जैसे हर बार गीत से शुरुआत करते हैं पहले गीत गाएंगे और गीत के तुरंत बाद हम अपनी बात करेंगे और उसके बाद जो है मीटिंग की समाप्ति होगी सब लोग अपना गाना शुरू करो जब बन ही गया बहनों का संगठन जब बन ही गया बहनों का संगठन इसको मजबूत करने का वादा करो इसको मजबूत करने का वादा करो 4 दिन की सहेली सहेली नहीं
Cultural wings of many NGOs have used elements of traditional popular culture to bring people together to carry information, to create awareness, but more significantly perhaps, to articulate the unvoiced experiences of disadvantaged people.
जैसा कि अभी हम लोगों ने पिछली मीटिंग में जो बात हुई थी कि हमारे पश्चिम उत्तर प्रदेश की मजदूरी जो है वो 35 रुपए है और हम 35 रुपए की मांग करें ये बात हुई थी ना
The women recall watching a puppet show that pointed out the discrimination against them in the wages they earn compared to what their men are paid. If the minimum wage is 35 rupees, they say here, we must demand it and are entitled to it. We will not tolerate discrimination against ourselves. If women do the same work, they must get paid as much as men. They remember the show that pointed this discrimination out, and it seems to have helped sharpen their resolve to fight for justice.
अच्छा और जब मजदूरी बढ़ेगी तो वो ऐसा थोड़ी बढ़ेगी उसके लिए लड़ना पड़ेगा लड़ने के लिए क्या कर रही हैं औरतें लड़ने के लिए तैयार हैं खुद भी हम इसी जिंदगी से निकल
We've gone through similar situations as our sisters in the village. This helps us empathize with each other and support each other.
हम लोग भी इन्हीं की जिस तरह की महिलाओं की समस्याओं का हम निवारण करते हैं। हम भी उसी तबके से निकल के आए हैं, इसलिए हमें अनुभव है, अनुभव के आधार पे हम सुलझाते हैं समस्याओं को। जहाँ तक भी मेरी आवाज आ रही है, सभी बहनें यहाँ पंडित जी के घेर में आ जाएं। आप लोगों के बीच में हम लोग एक कठपुतली का नाटक लेके आए हैं।
The strains of a harmonium, a concerned voice on the microphone pleads with the people to come in large numbers for the show, specially created to highlight the socio-economic problems in the area, which affect their daily lives. You work all the time, the voice says. Take a little time off to watch this show today. Surely you can do that work a little later and do it better. Even in more repressive village societies, women are rarely banned from attending puppet plays. This show has key messages on minimum wages, equal wages for women, immediate payment, an hour's break for lunch, take time off to breastfeed babies. The women listen with avid interest. It gives them a great sense of freedom, of liberation and togetherness. It comes like a breath of fresh air. The audience is then questioned about the messages. Though they often have a problem articulating clearly what they have learned, it is evident that the message has gone home. The medium of entertainment has once again proved a powerful tool for the communication of social messages, particularly when it centers on people's lives and experiences. It becomes important for any communication effort to evaluate the impact of its message, even if informally.
I have no authority to be the communicator or the messenger. Without the help of the community or the participant or the audience.
As the insistent drumbeat gathers an interested audience for a street play, the artist begins to assume a new persona. The painted mask offers him ease and familiarity. Traditional culture is the knowledge of a people passed down the generations. Wherever people live in communities, folklore grows. New jokes, proverbs, tales and songs, dances and theatre, all weave in and out of living cities, villages and towns. Theatre uses words and gestures to focus attention squarely on the exploitation of women here. It stresses, as ever, the need for solidarity and resolve in the face of severe oppression.
Mine is a kind of apparently political theatre, anti-establishment many times. So very rarely I get funds from a kind of indigenous sources. And ours is not a box office theatre. And rarely government comes to us actually. For example, this Aurat project is a government funded project. But still it is an anti-establishment if you look at it actually in terms of man-woman equation is concerned actually.
The woman's body becomes a potent metaphor. As the woman rides in agony, clutching herself, she represents the suffering of all mankind. Just as every part of her body is a sea of pain, every part of a woman's daily life can be submerged in an ocean of suffering and continual humiliation. Using traditional cultural forms may be art, but modern content and context flirts with propaganda. Art is subtle. It does not presume to provide answers. It is pluralistic, assuming no power, but the power to move the emotions deeply. Propaganda, on the other hand, is vertical. It presumes to hold the answers that are disseminated by those in power at the top who believe that they know. It fits the intense variety of human life into the straitjacket of preconceived notions.
People who've been involved with trying to create or bring about some kind of change in the society have actually moved a lot towards cultural activity because they feel that this is what is needed, especially for women's development. Like to bring women out, to create some kind of an awareness in them to think of how they will change their lives. It has, I mean, we have started doing it. In fact, some of the other people have also started using the medium of theatre or any other medium related to the performing arts to try and create a thought-provoking activity. So I would say that the impetus is to actually, in terms of trying to change society, using street theatre, using puppets, using dance, to force people to think of an alternative situation for themselves.
The women's fight against inequality and cruelty often seems an interminable battle. But she has the primal strength to survive.
एक थीम बनाते हैं पहला खुद एक नाटक बनाते हैं जिसको हम अपने लोक कथा से लेते हैं.
We chose a folk story and wove a play around it, making it contemporary. Ours is a male-dominated society in which they don't let the girl child go to school. They get them married early. Our street play was very effective.
जैसे कि ज़्यादातर लोग क्या कहते हैं कि हमारा ये मेल डोमिनेटेड है सोसाइटी है इसलिए औरत को बाहर आने नहीं देते हैं है ना और फिर गर्ल चाइल्ड को स्कूल नहीं भेजते हैं और बच्चों का विवाह जल्दी कर देते हैं.
The key issue in development is equity. The event must be participatory and democratic, howsoever difficult this may be, given the conservative nature of the societies with which they are dealing. Street theatre can use many devices, including mime with great success. This play deals with the issue of illiteracy. The man or woman who cannot read and write is often helpless to combat the very powerful forces of social oppression. His illiteracy is used as a tool to oppress him. Intonation and gesture are used very effectively in some traditions. Here economical, formalized movement and intoned words underline the continuing tragedy of terrorism.
Awareness is really using the form to stimulate people to think, to place an issue before them, to ask them what would you do if you were in this situation, or look how so-and-so tackled that, does that have meaning for you, and so on. But propaganda would be giving a very didactic solution, an answer. I would say one poses the problem, the other gives the answer.
The fact that it is fun is very important. Fun breaks barriers. People relax and are much more receptive to new ideas and to re-examining old ones. Here, the audience gets more than its due share of laughter. The actor, who is supposed to be petrified of the injection that is good for him, suddenly slips out of the role and starts laughing himself. An enthralled audience laughs with him, and the message goes home. An identifiable and lovable character often achieves in moments what speeches and exhortations would take a long time to achieve. Here the central puppet confesses in the local language that his main line of work is just to travel from village to village and keep talking to people.
Popular culture is taken to be, for instance, it's a larger term which can encompass this as well, folk as well. But sometimes it can be taken to be a culture which is more sort of urban based, for instance, manifestations of like film music, or the filmy sort of culture, or for instance things which are more modern or have something to do with modern technology.
Popular culture is current. It uses the forms of the past and the present. Puppet shows and street theatre as much as film and advertising, radio and television. Since the reach of modern media is wide, folk groups often adapt urban popular culture to their own traditions. What we separate as art, economics and religion is integrally expressed as folklore. The medium, we are told, is the message. But in the use of traditional popular culture for development, the content calls for responsibility and individuation. It needs to enable the form to subtly bring forth the messages from under the shadow of inherited social mores.
Folk culture or popular culture and traditional media or traditional cultures do intermingle. But I think you can define something as folk culture as long as it is performed for the folk. That can be either a rural audience or an urban slum audience or whatever, and performed by the folk, so people with kind of similar backgrounds. That in my working area is folk culture. The medium can be traditional, not necessarily, but at least in Tamil Nadu, the area where I'm working, the traditional medium is very often related to still a religious, social context.
The traditional costumes and settings languages and nuances familiar to an audience are the perfect vehicle for the communication of key messages. After all, when do any of us pay more attention to something than when we are entertained by it? Women's development is essentially a revealing of their latent strengths. It is freedom from a victim's mentality, a restatement of rights and responsibilities. It is empowerment and self-reliance. It is an affirmation.
सन्नाटा छोड़ के